once I was invited, it was the best kind of stress because it was something that I really wanted to do. And I think some of the stress comes from the stress that we place on ourselves, right? Like, he wanted, every week he wanted a blog, he wanted a bio, he wanted to see videos of our talks. We could provide a critique. I mean, there were things that needed to happen, and I think from that vantage point, you can look at it as this is really stressful. I think what is stressful about it is the fact that we all want to do such a good job up on that stage. We all want to get up there and be really good and really compelling, and we want people to take away our message and be able to get something from the experience of our being up there. And I think when you get to a place where you're being invited to speak on a TED stage of any kind, you are a certain kind of person who wants to excel and wants to do well.
Is there such a word as funnest? I'm not so sure. But having said that, this is one of the funnest interviews I have done with Jill Sherer Murray. We were like two peas in a pod. Having said that, this is one of the longest podcast interviews that I have done. So I encourage you, if you want to learn some nuggets about from the beginning to the end of creating a TEDx presentation, from putting in your application to developing it, to practicing it, to what it's like to be on stage, listen all the way through. And if you want to learn about letting go, that's a topic that's threaded throughout this interview. I encourage you to listen to the whole thing. If you can't, there's some markers down below to highlight the top tips and top places that perhaps you would like to listen to. Jill Sherer Murray is an award-winning journalist and communication leader who can trace every success in her career and apparently her love life to letting go. She's a writer, a marketer, a blogger, consultant, speaker. She often offers listeners the most profound lessons of her life, whether from decades of painful dating, I can commiserate, or being in a dead-end relationship, commiserate there too, including an epiphany that will serve any listener who has ever felt stuck. Jill spent a year studying improv comedy at the famous Second City Training Center in Chicago, and 5 years writing a popular blog called Diary of a Writer in Midlife Crisis for the award-winning online magazine wildriverreview.com. She also let go of just about everything to put her Weight and Shape magazine 12 times as part of an assignment to document her year-long weight loss journey for 6 million readers. In her day job, she leads a team of creatives in developing education and marketing campaigns for a national consulting firm. And she is preparing to unveil a new column called Big Wild Love, Let Go for It on Wild River. Her TEDx talk and mission overall is to help others realize what letting go really means, and that would be winning. Thanks for listening. Hello, Jill. A pleasure to meet you. Thanks for joining me this morning.
I am so happy to be here, Janice. Thank you so much for inviting me.
My pleasure. So I found you searching around, looking for women speakers, first of all. And I'm always looking to support my own clients and myself to learn tips and tricks myself about how to be a comfortable public speaker. And I came across yours and was absolutely delighted by it. Tell me how it is that you came to be on that TED stage and what was your intention for being there?
So that is a very multifaceted question. And being on that TED stage was just, first of all, so amazing. It was such the experience, and I have to tell you, it's quite a story. I think this is pretty natural for all of us as we get a little bit older and we sort of look around at our lives and we think, I've lived through some things, and I have some things that I really want to say, especially if, people who know me will hear that and just probably laugh because I am no wallflower, as I say in my talk. But I was getting to a point where I wanted to be kind of helpful in life. Like, I started, something really profound happened to me a couple years earlier when I had turned 50. I had this profound loss, and it changed me, and I kind of started seeing the world a little bit differently. And as I looked around at my own life and some of the things that I saw other people, doing, thinking, holding on to, I thought to myself, geez, I really would love to be able to be helpful. In addition to that, I had kind of found and discovered TED a couple years ago, and such a groupie. I mean, I used to spend hours upon hours, if not days, like sometimes just sitting, one talk, rolling into the next, just listening and marveling at just how amazingly talented their people are in the world and how grateful I felt for the opportunity to be able to access and hear from these people who without the TED Forum I might never have known about. So I thought I would really, really love to kind of combine my desire to be helpful, my ideas around some of the things that I had learned in life with my love also of, public speaking. I mean, I've done some of that in my work. I've facilitated courses. I give presentations in my job. I've spoken at writers' conferences, and I always have enjoyed that. In fact, I get up in front of clients now and I say, listen, this is my version of Broadway. So just let me talk and I'll take your questions at the end. Just kind of make fun and refund.
Good for you.
So I decided that I wanted to do a TED Talk, but, here's the really interesting thing. We can decide that we want to do something, but I had no idea how to get from point A to point B. I knew that it was a competitive and complicated process to get on that TED stage. So I did a couple of things. First of all, and Janice, I didn't even realize when I was doing this that I was doing it, but every morning, I drive an hour to and from my job. So every morning, I would put on my, you can't see me, but my, quote, theme song. So I Really Want It by A Great Big World. I will divulge that to your listeners. And I would imagine in my mind myself standing in the red circle on that stage. And I did it. I would play the song over and over, and I would imagine what it would be like to stand up there and be able to share my message and to be able to be in that experience. And I did that every day because it just felt good. I didn't do it because I was like, I'm going to manifest this. I did it just because it was fun. It was fun to think about. So I did that. And then one day I was kind of looking through my emails online, and I got an email from these people that I follow at Heroic Public Speaking, this Michael Port, and he was giving a workshop. Have you heard of him?
I've heard of Michael. He's fantastic.
He is phenomenal. He's phenomenal. He actually lives not too far from me. And I had no idea back then of his power. I will just say that. But he was giving a master class in New York. And I had gotten this in my email, and I thought, this looks really interesting. I think I'm going to go. It was very inexpensive. So I registered and I decided to go. And when I got there, I realized I was there with a group full of professional speakers and life coaches, of which I am neither. And
holy crap.
I thought to myself,
good for you. Way to go.
Oh, it was amazing. And I'm like watching it. He has a very tight-knit, very devoted community. And these people were just loving up on each other, so happy they'd all gone through grant courses together and this workshop and that event and that offsite. And I was just kind of taking it all in. And then I met this woman, and she was a speaker and a life coach. And we kind of, I hit it off and bonded, whatever. So when I came back after the conference, I sent her a note. And I just, she had said, I want to introduce you to this person and that person. I thought that would be great. So I sent her a note. And, sometimes the force just talks through us. Like, we have no idea what's going to come out of us. And we just have to kind of be open to allowing that, because what I wrote to her in my email was, in addition to, so nice to meet you, would love to stay connected, maybe we could work together. And I looked at that and I thought, well.
The power of those few words, Jill.
Yes. And I thought, where did that come from? I did not have that intention, but I thought, you know what, Jill, just hit send. That's what I said in my brain, just hit send. So I did. I hit send, and we met, and I told her that I wanted to give a TED Talk, and, we worked together for about probably 5 or 6 sessions, and I created my talk, my speech, and we figured out the platform and the whole bit. And then when I was done with that, and I thought, okay, well, now this is done. I remember saying to my husband, like, now what? I mean, now my talk is done. Now what? Well, then she sent me a link to an application for a TEDxWilmingtonWomen event. And she sent it to me. I love telling this story. And Janice, I will talk forever, so please feel free to interrupt me. But
I will.
When she sent me the link, I realized that I had 24 hours to get the application in. She sent it to me on a Friday, and the application was due by noon on Saturday. And my husband and I were planning to go up to New York that day to spend it with friends. And I looked at him and I said, son of a sailor, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make this happen. Because I thought, the worst that could happen is they said no. And this would be great practice, is understanding the application process, putting a video together. Like, I didn't have any of that.
You got it. And you could always apply somewhere else. But you said practice, right?
Exactly. I mean, I think it's just, there was the opportunity right in front of me. And I thought I had done all this preparation. I had done all this thoughtfulness. I had gotten my coaching. I had written my speech. So you know what? I was going to go for it. So we went into the city. I scripted a little video. We went out. We came home. My husband went to bed. I filmed my video. I stayed up for most of the night answering the applications. I went to sleep. I woke up. I said, let's do this, because he was going to help me film it. We did it. I sent it off. I said, up to the universe now. Let's go eat and let's go shop.
And how long was it before you heard back?
Well, so I was supposed to hear back by a certain day, and I didn't hear anything. So I figured, okay, I didn't get it. But we had already gotten tickets to go to a TEDxWilmington event. Aside from this was even before I knew that I was going to apply, just because I'd always wanted to go to an actual event. So I went there. I actually found the organizer, and I introduced myself to him, and I said, I'm disappointed that I wasn't accepted for the Wilmington Women, but I wanted to introduce myself. And he stopped me and he said, I haven't even had 5 minutes to look at that yet. I heard those words, Janice, in slow motion. I said, oh my God, there's still time. There's still a chance. And then a week later, I got the invitation.
Good for you.
Yeah.
It's a process, isn't it? There's hoops and there's a lot of work to be done.
It is.
If you want to be accepted as a speaker. And, I think sometimes it can be kind of onerous and people don't realize the work that is involved.
Without a doubt. And, it's interesting because when we went to the event, before I knew that I had been accepted for the Wilmington Women's event, I met a gentleman who was outside. He was smoking a cigarette. He was in a suit. He looked nice. He looked very happy. And I said, you look so happy. And he said, I just finished giving my talk. And I said, oh, congratulations. And I explained a little bit to him how I had been interested in giving the talk. And he said, well, I'll tell you this much. He said, if you do get invited, from the moment you're invited, prepare yourself for the most stressful experience ever. And I was like, really? And he said, especially with all the TEDx's are different, but for Wilmington, who is run by a gentleman named Ajit Matthew George, who is he is the mayor of everything. I mean, he is a fantastic man.
Yeah, they have a fantastic reputation.
Do they? Okay. Ajit is amazing. He is an amazing man. He is lovely and warm and kind and smart and dedicated. I mean, I cannot say enough amazing things. And he runs a very tight ship. So, which I was supremely grateful for. And I know many of the women that I presented with that were on the stage with me also felt the same way. But he actually sent out and said, listen, I have 28 speakers. I need 25. Whoever doesn't get me what I need when I need it is done.
Did you find the process stressful? And the reason that I'm asking this, because I'm leaping back to what you were speaking to, being in your car, playing the song, right? And putting yourself in that space of enjoying the process. Was it stressful for you?
Once I was invited, it was the best kind of stress because it was something that I really wanted to do. And I think some of the stress comes from the stress that we place on ourselves, right? Like,
for sure.
He wanted, every week he wanted a blog, he wanted a bio, he wanted to see videos of our talks so we could provide a critique. I mean, there were things that needed to happen. And I think from that vantage point, you can look at it as this is really stressful. I think what is stressful about it is the fact that we all want to do such a good job up on that stage. We all want to get up there and be really good and really compelling, and we want people to take away our message and be able to get something from the experience of our being up there. And I think when you get to a place where you're being invited to speak on a TED stage of any kind, you are a certain kind of person who wants to excel and wants to do well. So I think there was the deadline pressures. If you're not used to, I mean, I'm a journalist by trade. I mean, my life is a perpetual finals week, and I must like it because I've been doing it for a long time. But I think if you're not used to that, I think it could be a little bit of a pressure cooker. For me, it was exciting stress. It was, oh my gosh, I want to do really well. And the other thing for me was when I applied, I had a 15-minute, or actually I really had an 18-minute talk. I put down on the application that it was 15 minutes. I thought, I can get it down to 15 minutes. Well, I got 10 minutes. And
so you had to condense it even farther.
That's a new talk. That's a whole new talk.
Mm-hmm. It's a very focused, concentrated talk.
Yes, it is. And actually, I will say that going through the process of shortening it made it better. And I didn't know that in the beginning when I saw, and I had to grab my chest and look around for paddles or anything I could use to throw at myself. I thought to myself, oh my God. And the good news for me is, and you know, I always say this, Janice, like I used to think, you know, good credit was the meaning of life. Now I think it's just help is the meaning of life. Just help. And I have learned over my years that when I don't know how to do something, or if I feel like I really need another perspective, I just ask for help. I find people who can help me. And I've been very lucky and blessed over the years to have amazing people around me. And so when that happened, I reached out to a dear friend who is also a brilliant genius editor. Her name's Kim Najee. She's with Wild River Review, publishing and consulting. They also have a website, wildriverreview.com, which is phenomenal. And I called her and I said, in between my hyperventilation, oh my gosh, I have to cut the speech in half. You have to help me. I need your brain. And so she was amazing because she literally came to my house one day and we sat, the two of us, on my back deck from 10 in the morning until 8 at night. She had a computer. I had a computer. We hardly spoke. We just sent the same speech back and forth to each other all day long. We took some time to eat because, you know, you don't want to miss that ever. But we literally went back and forth, and then we had it. And it was like, okay, this is good. I feel really good about this. But so I think it's the internal stress that we put on ourselves. And ironically, you know, throughout the day and throughout the whole experience, I had to say to myself, Jill, let go.
Yes, absolutely let go. And as you were saying that, you know the literary term, when you're working through drafts, right? It's about losing the darlings, right?
Yeah.
And we get so attached to those words, those thoughts, our concepts.
Absolutely.
And you were so brilliant in inviting someone else to help you because they're standing aside and they have a different outlook on, you know, what is needed and what is not needed. So good for you. Congratulations. And isn't it interesting too, when we do reach out for help, all the yeses that we get, very seldom we get the no.
Yeah, it is really, I think people are honored. I think people are honored and happy to help. I mean, when I reached out to her, she was so excited. She was like, oh my gosh, because it makes them feel like they have something to contribute.
Absolutely.
I don't think anybody on earth wants to just be a taker.
No.
I think there's always a huge part of us that wants to be givers and that we want to be helpful. We want to be able to be the people that can come in and support and save and nurture and and lift up the people that we love. And she was so great because, first of all, you know, was really great at telling me, Jill, this little darling is doing nothing for anybody but you.
Exactly.
And I would say, do we need a burial ceremony? I mean,
I hear you. It's hard.
It's hard. It is hard. I would say, okay. And I would give her a dirty look. And then I would give her a hug. And then I would say, okay. And I would give her a raspberry and say, let's get rid of it. It's fine. You're right. Let's go. Let's be done.
I do the same process with my clients. I know. And I look at them and, you know, they just look in horror. It's like, no, I really wanted to say that piece. And it's like, no, it's really not necessary. It's tough. Like, I know that it's really tough. You know, something else that you really nailed and touched on, and this is something that I'm always sharing with my clients and always writing about as well, is that when we give a presentation, it's a gift. Mm-hmm. It's a gift of our knowledge, of our experience, you know, and those stories that we can tell. but we're being of service.
Mm-hmm.
And coming from that perspective, it alleviates a lot of nerves and anxiety. But it's a perspective that we have to implement and use and look at it from audience perspective.
Mm-hmm.
What is that they are going to learn from this? And so that was my question, to you in the very beginning. What was your intention? And, over these past few minutes, you've spoken to this, very beautifully, this gift of experience. So, and, it's so interesting from an audience perspective, for them, it's like, oh yeah, like I've been through that, helps them connect the dots through things.
Yeah.
And, so meaningful.
Yes. Yes. I would say that's such a great question because, really, that's why we're there. And my coach was so beautiful at always telling me when I would go, and I think we all do this. Nobody becomes a public speaker because they want to be in the shadows, or they don't want anybody to look at them, or they don't want anybody to approve of them. We're all out there for specific reasons. But, and this is a huge but, we have to go out there to be in service. That's what the audience is coming for. And my coach was so beautiful in saying when I would start to hyperventilate and I would start to say like, oh my God, because for me, I was seeing all the bios coming from the 24 other women that did everything, short of curing cancer in their talks.
You were comparing.
Of course, I was comparing myself to the other women that I would be on that stage, not in a competitive, hostile way, but in a, oh my gosh, she brings, thousands of underpants to starving Indian children. And here I am, on the stage talking about a breakup.
Yeah. And what am I doing here? But when you look at that and when you say that, I'm thinking to myself, probably many people in that audience, it really resonated.
Yes. I would say a couple of things. So I have to always remind myself, because we are human, I am human, that nobody ever gets ahead looking sideways. And I had to remind myself that I was really honored and I felt very blessed to be able to share the stage with such caliber of women doing such amazing things. But my coach was always, you are there to be in service. So you stay focused on your message. Don't worry about, what your outfit looks like, or if you're having a bad hair day, or if this piece is bothering you, or what someone else is doing. Your goal is to be on that stage and to connect and to be helpful. Remember the whole reason why you started this is that something deeply profound happened to you. You learned something from it and you want to share it so people can benefit from those lessons. And so as soon as I could continue to put myself back in that frame, I really went less from looking at what everyone else was doing or feeling nervous to feeling really excited about being able to say what I needed to say and help somebody else, And I think that is such an important grounding point for all speakers, is to remember that we are up there to be in service and to be true to our message and to be real.
Yeah, so well said.
And to be honest and to be vulnerable, because really, we have to get up there and tell the truth. That's it. That's it. We have to be the ones who are brave enough to get up there and tell the truth. For me, that was telling the truth of my story and laying bare all the things that I, at one time in my life, made me feel really almost ashamed and made me feel really sad and really dark and really like, oh my God, what's wrong with me?
When you had told the story, did you feel like a weight was lifted?
Yeah, I did. I think I had already felt that, especially as I went through the rehearsal process and getting it out. It was interesting because I had my parents were in the audience and, they had no idea what I was going to be talking about. I never shared that story with them or told them anything about it. And so I think for me, I had to forget that my parents were in the audience and just kind of go out there and be truthful. And I think part of me felt really relieved because I felt like, yeah, I'm finally out here telling the truth. And I'm proud of it. I'm proud to be out here sharing my story with you because, it takes a lot of time and energy to make pretend that you have a perfect life. Not that I ever made pretend that I had a perfect life, but we all want the outside world to view our life and view us a certain way. And I think it just felt good to say, look, I'm human like everybody else. And I have learned over the past, 10 years, I would say, if I have an issue as personal as it is, I talk about it, because I find when I talk about these most personal things to people in the appropriate places, I get answers. It's how I find my way to answers. It's how I find my way to help and connection.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to interject, that connection to others.
Yeah.
So I think we probably have a lot of listeners very curious exactly what the your talk was about. So the Coles Notes version, how did it roll out?
Yes, so I don't want to tell everything because I want people to go and listen to my talk. But
let's tease them.
Yes. So my talk is really about, how I used the act of letting go to pretty much blow up my entire life. And to get from a point where I was, stuck in a dead-end relationship, in a life that didn't exactly feel right, not having the love that I wanted, not having the commitment that I wanted, to finding the things that I really wanted in life. So that required me to let go of certain things. And in that process of letting go, which was not easy, which was, very, very hard and very, at times even crushing, requiring me to let go of a lot of beliefs and a lot of stereotypes and a lot of ideas of what I thought my life should and would have been, how I managed to find my way to a really happy place. And when I say it's a really happy place, Janice, I want to caveat that by saying it's not a perfect place. I still have stuff. We all do. We always will. I think, until we're gone, I hope if we're doing things right, we're always going to have something to let go of or a reason to look at our world in a certain way or in a different way or figure out how to get through and muddle through certain hardships. But I think a big part of it is, figuring out how to use letting go as kind of an art and a practice so that every day you really have the life you want, warts and all. Because there are the warts, and that's just being realistic.
For sure. That's life. And I'll give you by example, and this is what really caught my attention about your talk, because I see it, for me, that it plays out. And I'd like to hear your feedback around it. For me, that when I push really hard, so in personal relationships, and so I'm especially thinking about work, around business, push, really, really focused, right? And I'm like, I'm just like pit bull, here I go, and I'm driving, right?
Yep.
Oftentimes frustrated, right? Realizing things are not unfolding the way that Janice would like them to.
Right.
And so, in my mind, it's, what, just relax. Just back up here, just relax. And then usually, and I'm not saying all the time, things have a way of unfolding the way that they should. So there's the caveat, the way that they should.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's so fascinating. I've watched it play out time after time after time. And I know that you don't know me. I'm not the airy-fairy, type. Like I'm quite pragmatic. And this whole concept quite fascinates me, how it does work out.
Yeah. And that is right there. That is, you call it relax. I say let go, because we hold on so tightly to things. And we hold on to them because we're afraid, we're unsure.
Yes.
We don't think we deserve differently or we don't deserve better. I have this woman that I know who's very brilliant. She always says, there's nothing you want upstream, which basically means stop swimming upstream. Everything you want is downstream. So if you're pushing really hard for something and it's not working, maybe that's not your something.
You got it.
And it's so interesting. I'm listening to you talk and you can't see me because I have such a big smile on my face because I am like type quadruple A personality. Pushing. I have, a full-time big job. I drive 2 hours a day. I'm writing a book. I have another project in the works. I'm starting an advice column. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I've got all kinds of things happening and I'm just moving. And for people like me, and maybe you, it's hard to relax and let go. It's hard because we're so used to driving that it's not reflexive for us. And sometimes, not sometimes, I think most times we have to be very intentional about letting go, and we have to really look for the signs that tell us that it's time. And one of the things I do talk about in my talk, and I talk about in my book, and I will throw this out, one of the things in the book that I'm working on is kind of the power of the epiphany, right? So for me, the story that I tell in my talk was really my epiphany story, because we have opportunities for epiphanies every day. And most of us, I will speak for myself. I mean, I slept walk through like several epiphanies around my relationship. And I would say, you know, we all need to kind of stop sleepwalking through our epiphanies, which are those moments that say to us something needs to change. And it's hard to not sleepwalk through them, because once you are awake to an epiphany, you actually have to do something about it. And that can be very painful.
Would you describe it, though, this epiphany piece about, you feel it in your gut, right? Like there's this uncomfortableness. Yeah. And oftentimes we just don't want to feel it, and we just, so we keep on going.
We don't. I mean, that's why I eat pound cake. I mean,
Snickers bars here.
Exactly. I mean, who wants to feel anything that hurts and is pain? I mean, yes. I mean, great epiphanies, but even like the day-to-day epiphanies, I mean, they come with consequences, and we avoid them because we don't want to have to deal with those consequences, and so we avoid them until we can't avoid them anymore. And I always say, and I tell this to my friends, and I told this to myself, pay attention to the epiphanies, acknowledge them, take action. You don't want to live a muffled life. You want a life that is going to be right for you and be robust, and that you can look back on and say, I did and had the things that I wanted for the most part. I mean, we all have to deal with certain realities and imperfections, but in the big spaces, love, work, health, relationships, money, like we really aren't being fair to ourselves if we don't pay attention to those epiphanies and let go of the things we need to let go of to be true to ourselves. And I always say one of the biggest things about, to me, actually, Janice, everything we do around all of this stuff comes down to one real thing, and that's just self-love. And, if we can learn how to just love ourselves, then we will make decisions in our best interest. And when I say in our best interest, I'm not encouraging people to be selfish or awful to other people, or, ignorant or not considerate of their needs, especially if you have families or people who are close. But, it's interesting because I was with some friends and family members, and one of the women was in a relationship, and it was obvious to all of us that guy didn't really want anything more than just kind of a fun little dalliance with her, and she was kind of putting more emphasis on, but he's still with me, and he doesn't break up with me, and I know he cares, and so the track that all we women do.
Oh, I know the track. Oh, yeah.
And one of her friends was saying to her, well, you need to she was really lobbying hard, like, you deserve better, and you need to get rid of him, and you need to move on. And I was just being very quiet, and she said to me, well, Jill, what do you think? And I just looked at her, and I said, you can stay with him or you can leave him. It doesn't matter, because it's not about him. It's about you. And that's what it kind of comes down to. Yeah.
And I would add to that, for me, and so, I'm older than you, and, by experience, it's not the things, Jill. It's, and I guess this is the thing that, for me, open-heartedly around, it's how I want to feel. I want to feel at ease. I want to feel confident. Yeah. I want to feel that joy and that bliss every day. And so for me, that's really being attuned and listening to, when things come across my path about how I'm feeling about them. And, and it doesn't fail me. It serves me quite well.
That's right. We have to trust ourselves and love ourselves enough to recognize when things are feeling out of tune, and to acknowledge that and to do something about it. And that can be hard.
Oh, it's tough. It's hard work.
Yeah, absolutely.
It should be, I guess, but it is. Yeah. So what kind of feedback did you get from your TED Talk? What did you hear?
Well, oh my gosh, I got this was really fun to get such, wonderful feedback from people. I got a lot of letters and emails and notes from people that I knew, people that I didn't know, telling me that, they so appreciated, my honesty and, kind of putting myself out there and, just talking about, the truth, like basically going out there and just, telling the truth. A friend of mine shared my talk, and I actually got some wonderful feedback from this woman. And I've made friends, Janice, in other states, people I don't even know, but now I'm connected to them, and I adore them. I mean, I feel like I've known them for so long, and I follow them and I cheer in for them, and we go back and forth and we have these conversations about, letting go. And I've had people write to me and tell me their own kind of letting go heartbreak stories and how they've risen above them and how they watched my talk. One woman I know here who actually helps us with a couple of things around our house, she had lost her husband about 5 years ago, and she was so sad about, she helps us, she'll walk the dogs and she'll help us with those kinds of things. And she just, I would always say to her, like, you're still young, you're such a wonderful woman, don't write yourself off from love and having this life that you want. And then one day she came to see us and she had this big smile on her face. And I said, what's happening for you? And she said, I met someone and I would never have opened my heart. I've known him for a while, but I just resisted and resisted. And then I watched her talk and I was like, why am I resisting? And now she's getting married and she's happy as a clam. And you know what?
Jill.
You know what, Janice? If that is the only story, but there's so many of them that have come to me like this. But if that is the only story I ever heard, like, it would all be worth it for me, because I look at her now, and I mean, she was so depressed and checked out. I mean, really, it was sad. I mean, she lost this man that she loved, but she found it because she opened her eyes to it, and it was always, right there for her. So we've gotten some really, I have to say, one of the most interesting experiences around people responding to my talk is, and your listeners might appreciate this, when I was preparing for my talk, I've heard some people talk about how they practiced it 50 times. I think I practiced 600 times. I didn't count exactly, but I did my talk when I was in the shower, when I was driving, when I was walking the dog. Like, I did it everywhere in my mind possible. And then before the talk, I actually went to a friend's yoga class and gave it to her yoga class. And then I went to there's a university close to my house, and they have like a seniors program. And one of the classes, all they do is listen to TED Talks. They've had it for about 10 years. My father was in the class. So he suggested I go into that class and that I practice in front of the class. And the professor was lovely. He let me come in. And so I gave my talk, and I thought, well, this is a group of seniors, and they probably heard it all, and they're probably going to be bored. Oh my God. They were unbelievable. And one of the gentlemen in the class raised his hand after the class, and there's a part in my talk where I talk about a rain hat. And he said, how did it feel to wear that hat? Because, in life, we're all asked to wear a lot of different hats. And sometimes that's really scary for us, and we don't do it because we don't love ourselves, or we don't think we're worthy, or we don't think we deserve it, or we're afraid to change. And he went on and on. I wanted to hug that man. Oh my God, it was so beautiful just to see and hear how rapt they were and how engaged they were. And they came up to me and they wrote to me afterwards, and it's just been amazing. It's just been really amazing.
Oh, Jill.
Yeah.
And something too, and congratulations on the practice piece.
Thank you.
I spoke with Isaac Litsky yesterday, and he echoed very much the same, and I can't remember the numbers, but they were close to yours. It's so important, that practice piece, and I think that so many do not understand. I've heard that term, wing it. I don't know how many times, and that comes back to bite you in the butt.
I cannot even imagine what it would be like if and I have to tell you, I was the third from the last of 25 speakers. So I sat there all day stewing in my anxiety.
Yes, anticipation, yeah.
And if I didn't have full confidence that I had rehearsed that talk, because I was tired. And, it's funny because that night before we had a rehearsal dinner, Ajit, again, amazing. The next day, we stayed over in Wilmington because we live about an hour and a half away. But that next morning, as I was, getting ready, I said to my husband, I'm just going to as I'm getting dressed, I'm just going to talk it. I know you're probably sick of hearing it, but I'm just going to say it again. And at one point, I think I was putting on my tights or something. I can't remember. And I stopped. And the second I stopped, Janice, he picked it up and finished the speech.
So that's how well rehearsed it was.
That's how well rehearsed it was.
Good for you.
I don't always think he's paying attention to me, but.
Yeah. And, and my analogy to my clients is, how many people are in the audience? You have 200 people in the audience, and they are sitting there listening to you, for 10 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever it is. So times that by audience members, that's the amount of time investment that is in that audience, right? And, and respectfully around, people who are coming to listen to you, it's the onus is then on you to give it your all and to be well practiced and to be able to deliver it the way that you had intended to be. And that only comes with practice.
Absolutely. And one of the great pieces of advice that gentleman outside that day gave me when he said he had just finished his talk that he gave me, he said, if you get invited when you are practicing your talk, make sure that you get to a point where you turn on every television in your house, turn on every radio, have somebody play with your dogs, make them bark, and stand in the middle of that chaos and be able to give your talk. Because there are people walking, there's people getting drinks, they're looking at their phones, they're talking. You have to be able to, in the middle of anything that's going on, get up there. And I thought that was just amazing advice. And I did that. I actually got to a point where I turned on our televisions really loud. I threw the ball to the dogs. I let the phones ring. I mean, anywhere I could find chaos, I stood there and did my talk to make sure that I could do it in the middle of whatever was happening on that day. And that was really good. And another piece of advice that a friend of mine who's actually an actress, a stage actress, told me she said, you should get on your treadmill and do it.
And the reason for that?
Because it helps you with your breath work. It helps you learn how to manage your breath, especially if you are anticipating nerves. Now, I mean, you're not, sprinting on the treadmill while you're giving it, but although I'm sure at some point I would have tried, Janice. But
I hadn't thought of that. That's great advice.
Isn't that a great tip? I thought, wow, that is such a great idea. And so I did. And it was very interesting. I did have to learn how to work my breath as I was walking on the treadmill, giving my talk.
I'm going to try that. Yeah, that's cool. Now tell me, any other talks lined up for yourself?
Right now, I'm actually putting the finishing touches on my website this weekend in preparation for promotions and getting out there and doing some more speaking. My coach has a list of places that she wants to share with me. So she's been amazing because, she's kind of been educating me on the professional speaker circuit and how it all works. And, she's a great student of Michael Port. So, and she's been kind of explaining to me how it works and where to go next. So that is definitely in my plans to start doing more of that. And I have a couple of places to access, but I've been so busy working through book proposal and book. And I'm really excited that I'm going to be writing a brand new advice column for Wild River.
I heard you mention that before and you tweaked my interest.
I'm going to be doing a column called Big Wild Love, Let Go For It. And it's really all about having people write in and ask me their questions around relationship and using some of the principles of letting go along with some of the things that have happened to me in my own life to help them find their way. And I can tell you, Janice, I met my husband when I was 43. So I've been engaged, I've dated, tall men, short men, old men, young men, I have been engaged, not engaged, married, single, online dating, offline dating. So I always say to my editors, I have built up my street cred for this. Everything I've done up until now has led me to this moment. I think I'm proud of it. Not really sure, but I'm excited.
You have the experience.
And
your speaking engagements coming up, will they be different than the talk that you, the TEDx talk that you did?
So they'll be, they'll be based on the same principles and the same platform, of course, expanded so that it's longer than an 11 minutes and 34 seconds, which is ultimately what my talk came out to. There'll be some interactivity with the audience. So it'll be the basic premise and the basic stories, but expanded out to a longer speech. So yeah, but the platform of let go and sort of that messaging around why and how we need to do that in our lives that I feel very deeply passionate about will absolutely be the centerpiece of those talks for sure. Yeah. I also had written a column for Wild River before, a blog called Diary of a Writer in Midlife Crisis. And so I actually have somebody out in California looking to potentially shop that as a TV series. So that is
no way.
That, Janice,
That's crazy exciting.
Dreamer girl right now that it happens. No guarantees in life. So, working really hard to let go of the outcome and anything that might come from that. But this is the power of letting go and swimming downstream, that once we find that thing, I think the universe opens up for us. And we just have to keep our eyes open and be aware of those opportunities that are coming to us and really do the things that send us.
I so agree.
Yeah.
I so agree.
Yeah.
And, I can't wait to hear talks, that you will be delivering in the next little while and to read your columns. I'm excited to.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I would love to do another TED Talk. Oh, I would love to do another one.
I hope you do. Oh. And to see this all pan out into a series. That would be something very, very cool. Yes. Thank you, Jill, for today. That was fantastic. It was lovely
Janice,
to speak with you.
Thank you. I had so much fun. It was so great to speak with you, and I look forward to hearing the final product. And I have been on your site and listening to all of your podcasts, and they're amazing.
Oh, have you?
You are no slacker. You are no slacker. You are no slouch.
Thanks
you
so
need
much.
to be the subject of your own podcast one of these days.
Perhaps you'll interview me.
Anytime.
There you go. Thanks so much, Jill.
All right. Thanks, Janice. You take care.
Take care. I'm going to share a secret with you that you probably will think, what the heck is she talking about? So counterintuitive. But I'll tell you that when my clients get to a place where they come to me and we're near the end of working together and they're about to deliver their presentation, and they say to me, you know what? I don't care anymore. I know that they're going to present an excellent presentation because it's all part of letting go. What's more important is the process. It's developing that presentation, being invested in all that it takes to be able to deliver a presentation. All of those pieces that Jill and I talked about in this interview. So I encourage you, let go. Don't care so much. I really appreciated this time with Jill. I hope that you enjoyed it as well. Love to hear your feedback and comments. I send out a bi-weekly newsletter, usually bi-weekly, sometimes later than that. And if you'd like to sign up, be part of all of that, head over to JaniceTomich.com. You can sign up there. Thanks so much for listening.